Hi, it's Jonathan Howkins here from Guitar Coach magazine, and today I'm at Guitar Village here in my hometown of Farnham, a fantastic guitar store with something like 1,200 guitars on display. It is a truly awesome place. Anyway, in a few moments I'm going to be sitting down talking with one of their guitar specialists about what the top brands have to offer in terms of entry-level electric guitars.
First of all, I'm going to pick on the Strat, I think. So basically, this particular Strat is a Mexican standard Strat. I picked on this one because it's classic in the fact that it's got the maple neck, which was what Fender basically offered people first when they brought the guitars out. Right. And you've got your single coil pickups, which again were the first pickups to be invented, if you like. You've got nice contours on it, you know, so it's quite comfortable to play. Maple is a much brighter sounding wood, and anything with like a rosewood board, like your Les Paul there, for example, it mellows it down, and it does make a difference. The other key feature with the Strat is it's got a bolt-on neck, whereas your Les Paul's got like a set glued neck. Which again does make a difference to the sustain that you get from the guitar. The main sorts of woods that Fender generally tend to use are alder and ash. Then you've got obviously your tremolo, which is another significant feature of the Fender thing, because obviously generally you don't get tremolos on your Les Paul, Gibson style things. It's very much like a Fender thing. Generally, the necks are a lot slimmer than Les Paul, so right. You know, I always found Strats really comfortable to play. I think when you're starting out, I think playability is a massive issue. Really, you want something that you're going to be comfortable learning with. Yeah. I think the sound thing is important as well, but when you're starting out, it's all about playability. So then we move on to this fella here, which is your Epiphone Les Paul, which are actually manufactured in Indonesia at the moment. The manufacture nowadays is very, very good. I remember my first guitar when I learnt. And it wasn't particularly great. I have to be honest. I'm not going to drop any names, but no, it was manufacture is much better now. Basically, a Les Paul in classic finish, like the cherry sunburst. Starting this end, with the neck, chunkier neck profile on the back. That's the first thing that you would notice if you're picking this guitar up. The other thing is the rosewood fingerboard. Now, generally, Gibson have always used rosewood. The other main thing is the glued-in set neck, a much thicker body as well. This is a much heavier guitar. And basically, the main woods that Gibson / Epiphone use are mahogany. You generally tend to find that it's mahogany neck, mahogany body. On the Gibsons, they have a solid maple cap. On the Epiphones, you've got a veneer finish, basically. So it's still maple, but it's a veneer rather than solid. The other major difference, obviously, is the pickups. You got humbucker pickups, which like we said, were invented in '57 by Seth Luther, and basically they were designed because with single coil pickups you get quite a lot of hum, basically 60 cycle hum. People would have heard it referred to. So that chap invented the humbucker, which is basically a couple of single coils under there, reverse wound to cancel out the hum. But what you get is a much higher a sort of output pickup, if you like. It's a much sort of fuller sound, completely different to to your single coil pickup. The other different thing about this particular guitar is the fact that they've got into coil tapping now as well. So you can actually You can actually, well, to give you like a single coil sound, a bit.
Oh, I see.
You know, so it's not going to be exactly. The idea isn't to replicate the single coil sound.
Les Paul.
But it is, it's a different take, and I think it's a good idea actually, because it does give you more tonal variety with your Les Paul. So I think it's quite a nice little touch. Then if we move on to the PRS SE here, I take my hat off to PRS as a company in general, because it was very much like a niche market owned by Fender.
Oh, really?
and Gibson, and I think PRS are one of those brands that sort of nuzzled their way in between the two and came up with something slightly different, but become a real force. Basically, fairly similar to Gibson, I have to say, in the fact that we've got a glued-in neck, mahogany body with a maple veneer cap, and humbuckers. The bit where this varies a lot is we've got a trem, unlike the Gibson, so it's giving you a bit of variation. The neck scale is actually in between your Fender and your Gibson, generally. And the other thing is the double cutaway. So it's kind of, taking a bit of inspiration from both, and really coming up with like I said, a really sellable, product. The neck profile on this is very slim, a very slim neck profile. So, and again, the fingerboard radius, get a nice low action, without it choking out too much. PRS have always, produced very, not going to say pretty guitars, because that's probably not, but visually stunning guitars. You've got like your classic bird inlays, which they popped on these fellas now, which is a nice touch. And last but not least, we've got our Ibanez here, which essentially is a super Strat, if you like. That's what a lot of people sort of refer to them as. Again, we've got a set neck on it, similar to PRS and your Les Paul. Fingerboard on this is rosewood. The main difference with this, Ibanez really kicked in the 80s, when you had players like Joe Satriani, Steve Vai. The idea, the whole concept with the Ibanez thing was to produce guitars that were very, very easy to play, I guess. You had guitar players like Satriani and Vai that were technically very good, but they wanted to offer them a super low action, super fast necks, really slim. So they really kicked in then, and we sell a lot of these guitars to people starting out, just purely on things like the neck profile, because it is so slim. I think generally people like a slimmer neck profile. Yeah. It's not the thing is that everybody's hand sizes are different, and for me personally, I have quite small hands, so having a thin neck profile, I quite like, because I can get a wider stretch basically. The main difference with this fella is essentially very Strat-like in the fact we got the the double cutaway, and the body's pretty. Yeah, it's a Strat really. It's a super Strat. I mean, the main thing is that we've got the trem, which obviously we've got with the Strat, but they offer you the choice of humbucker and a couple of single coils. They do various configurations, Ibanez, like they might do like 2 humbuckers and a single coil. And again, with the humbucker on this fella, you can coil tap it, so you can split it down the 2 to give you that Fender sort of sound. If you're unsure which style that you're going to want to be going into when you're learning, then obviously a guitar like this ticks a hell of a lot of boxes, because you've got your classic humbucker sound as well as your single coil. It is a very personal thing, choosing a guitar, and neither of these guitars I would say are better than one another. They're all just different. Yeah.